This episode of Simulation Nation is brought to you by Avkin Incorporated, your one-stop shop for standardized patients. On today's Simulation Nation, we're talking about your opportunities to maximize Healthcare Simulation Week 2023.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Simulation Nation podcast. So we are back by popular demand. We thought we were just going to do this as kind of like an introduction to an axle and things like that in May, but then we got really good feedback and we decided that we wanted to come back and do some more episodes in the fall.
On a topic that is also very near and dear to our hearts, which is Healthcare Simulation Week.
Yep. So this podcast is basically just two simulationists that hang out and have a conversation and talk about the things that you guys are talking about. So this week we're going to be talking about Healthcare Simulation Week that will be happening in September. So Society for Simulation in Healthcare, they started this, do you know how many years ago?
I'd say a good 7 to 10.
Yeah, pretty much as long as I can remember. We've been having National Healthcare Simulation Week, and this is something that they do a lot of promotion on, a lot of sponsorship on. And again, it is not just here for the United States, it is international. So there's a lot of international efforts that go out. So Amy, you actually led this last year, this whole week pretty much. So can you talk about your experience with that?
Yeah, it was really cool. So the first thing I want to make sure is that everybody knows that you do not have to be a member for the Society for Simulation in Healthcare in order to participate in Healthcare Simulation Week. It's kind of a time where they open the doors or open the veils behind the doors and allow anybody that is a simulationist that wants to promote their simulation center, to advocate for healthcare simulation, to tap into the resources that they have within that organization, and then also to support other organizations that also have healthcare simulation. So this isn't necessarily specifically for the Society for Simulation in Healthcare. It's really just a way to advocate for healthcare simulation within the industry.
And I think that's so important because I think that, again, that happens so often where we get into silos, right? You have ANAXL, you have ASPE, you have SSH, you have all of these different associations, but we're all working towards the same goal. And then internationally, you have CSAM, you have, ASIPH, right?
ASPIH.
I can never remember all the acronyms. There's too many acronyms.
They call that ASPE too.
Okay, so that's another ASPE, international or UK ASPE. But again, we have so many associations, again, not just here at the U.S., but also globally, and we all have this mission and goal of wanting to further simulation. And so be able to have a time of the year that, again, kind of all of these, lines can be brought up, or however you want to say it, we're able to then actually kind of just all come together as a unified front, again, for legislation, for advocacy, for being able to just talk about what simulation is and what simulation can do.
Yeah.
Because there is just still this mindset that simulation is still, again, in my mind, we've come so far, but I still feel like, again, it's like every inch, we're fighting for every inch to just keep moving forward, to advocate for what it is that we're doing to improve, healthcare education.
Yeah, and I think that a really good example of that is last year when I was doing the Healthcare Simulation Week or leading that, we were, the title or what we, the caption of it was Defining Excellence in Simulation. Mm-hmm. And the platform that I chose, I kind of feel like the first lady, like you get to choose a platform if you're the first lady, but the platform that I really selected to hone in on last year was certification. And I spent several of our webinars were on the different types of certification opportunities that they have within each of the different societies. And though the webinar was sponsored and the marketing team from the Society in Simulation in Healthcare ran these webinars, they welcomed the international platform as well as ASPE and ANAXL to talk about what they're doing as far as the certification. And again, if you think about this from an advocacy role, the importance of that is that if somebody is Googling regulations, certifications within healthcare simulation, they're going to be able to happen upon those webinars and hear about what we're doing as far as regulating healthcare simulation, certifying different institutions, or endorsing certain institutions, certifying individuals, because I don't think we do a good enough job getting that word out. So that was really kind of the platform that I selected for the webinars, or for some of the webinars last year. And I think that idea of embracing all these different institutions is so important.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we're not just coming forward to promote healthcare simulation. We are coming forward to promote the educational modality, as the way that Devin from Sam Houston said it. It's a braid, right? You have your didactic or your course education, you have your clinical education, and then simulation is the third part of that braid. And so as you think about that modality and the importance of that modality moving forward, it's improving the educational outcomes for our learners.
Yeah.
But it's also, at the end of the day, if you think of the ultimate goal, it's about improving patient safety.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we're all going to be healthcare consumers. So I don't think there's anybody that's going to argue with the mantra that we want our healthcare systems, no matter where in the world we are, to be more safe.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember when Devin said that, Devin Barry from Sam Houston, he's the dean there. Again, he is a Shakespeare with words.
Oh, my
and you hear him
gosh.
talk, and you're just like, oh, my goodness, I could listen to you all day.
And it's not planned. It's not like he had pre-notes.
Yeah, no,
This
it was like
hey, come for a couple minutes and talk to our Sim Summit people. But it just is so eloquent whenever he speaks.
But the main thing he said with that, when he started that conversation, was he's saying, we do not have a philosophy as simulation as a replacement for clinical. It is an essential component as, 1/3 of that brain. And again, I think that is just so important, because again, I think that so often we are fighting in that terms of, oh, it's a replacement for clinical. How much can you have? All of those things. But what we're not talking about is it can stand on its own. It doesn't need to be that replacement, but simulation is a key component of that healthcare education that, again, is all important, and they all rely on one another to come together to be able to provide that for students. And I do think that in terms of being able to have everyone come forward and talk about their accreditations and certifications and things along those lines, I think that it's so important to have one place, because it gets so confusing. There are so many things, and again, in the world of simulation, things are moving forward so fast and so quickly that, yes, you might hear about something that someone's putting out, and then someone else puts something else out. And again, in life, you're just constantly consuming information all the time. But being able to have one place that actually is discussing all of the different options out there, again, I think it's crucial, because there's just so much. And so being able to know what's the right fit, what are you eligible for, what is your simulation center eligible for, what certifies you as a simulationist, what certifies your simulation center, and just the whole gamut of it, it just gets to the point where it feels like everyone has a new thing that's coming out. So again, I think it's really important to have one location that has all of that information there.
Yeah, and I think it's great for the healthcare simulation community, because not everybody is a member of SSH and doesn't know that there's a certification for healthcare simulation educators. And the Anaxel endorsement is brand new. And so I'm still talking to people that haven't heard of the Anaxel endorsement. So Anaxel, get on your marketing team to get that word out about that endorsement, because I think it is a great opportunity to have your program looked at as far as the quality of simulation. It's not every jot and tittle, every operations portion of it, but it's how well you do simulation, which I think is a fantastic endorsement opportunity. But I think the other big thing is that when I talked to people from the National Council of State Boards of Nursing, they literally had no idea that there were regulations, that there was opportunities. And that shocked me.
Yeah.
That we weren't doing a better job as a healthcare simulation community to let our accrediting bodies know, or the regulatory bodies know, that we do have certifications and accreditation. And so for me, that was the motivation. It was something that was going to live on in the YouTube webinars, annals, I guess, or whatever you want to say.
Well, I think that's fun. The exciting part is that, again, this is that one time of year for all of us really to be able to go forward with that education, with being able to show what's coming out of simulation, what we're doing for that regulatory process, what are new things that are happening. And again, there's no agenda from any side. It's really just, let's keep pushing simulation forward. Let's really get it out there. And I think that that's what's so exciting about Healthcare Sim Week. And again, why we want to talk about being able to maximize it, because it really is a crucial opportunity for you guys really to be heard as simulationists, right? This is a time that this is our national week, right? So we can go to leadership. We can do all of these things to get the ears of a lot of people. And so again, that's our job and our responsibility as those simulationists to get that word out. So that's what we're going to be really discussing here. We're going to go over 4 tips for you guys to really be able to maximize Healthcare Sim Week and what it is that you guys can do at your simulation centers or just you individually to, again, help push simulation forward and advocate for your needs. I think that that's the other big thing there. Like you being able to talk about what your needs are in simulation and be able to have that ear.
And I would just encourage you, because this is coming out hopefully, early enough for everybody, take at least one day in that week and set it aside as a celebration for healthcare simulation. It's hard to do that. Everybody has busy schedules. We're going to be down at GW doing a Sim Summit for Healthcare Simulation Week. But take at least one day to do something at your Sim Center. So 4 easy tips, 4 things to think about, and it doesn't have to all be on you. I know some of you are the chief cook and bottle washer or chef cook and bottle washer, so know that we have some tips and tricks along the way that don't just make you the only person that's going to be working towards some type of advocacy or awareness.
So tip number 1 is include your marketing team. This is something that I think is so underutilized. And if I knew more about the marketing team when we were back at the university, I would have included them in a lot more things than we were doing. I think that, again, we don't realize their scope and their reach and what their job functions really are. Their job functions at a university or at a community college or whatever it is, their job is to get the word out about what the institution is doing and to make them look good. That is the bottom line. And marketing teams are always looking for an angle of how to pitch something to other media and how to get the word out there further. So utilizing things like national, weeks and things like that, that's a huge thing to be able to contact local news channels, local radio stations, things like that, to be able to get the word out about what that institution's doing. And in healthcare and in nursing, it's so easy to talk about because everybody understands that. Everybody understands the importance of healthcare. Better trained nurses, right? You don't need to convince someone, hey, we want good trained nurses. Everybody can understand that across the board. So being able to call in your marketing team and say, hey, this week comes up in September. It's for the Society for Simulation in Healthcare. Again, they can be able to look up their website, look about the different events that are happening, and help you plan something at your institution. And whether that be an event that you're planning, or if it's just writing an article up, them coming and getting some pictures of what you guys are doing. But the more that you can have them make you look good, the easier your job is, because all you're doing is your daily normal functions, and they're just coming beside you to help record that, come up with the story, come up with the angle, and then contact their teams that they already have. They work with the media on a regular basis, so being able to invite people in or pitch a story, they already have those emails, they already have those phone numbers. It's really easy for them to make that contact and to be able to get that move forward much faster than you on your own, trying to put something together and trying to do that. But using the platform your institution already has gives you a leg up when you're starting out.
Yeah, so jumping off of that, most every community college, again, I don't know about internationally, but I would assume that every university, community college, whatever it is, does want to highlight the cool things that are happening within their institution. So do know it may only be one person, but the other really cool thing is that the industry, such as television stations or radio or even newspapers, they don't like to do things months in advance. So even if you're getting kind of a late start, having it be, hey, in 2 weeks we're doing this, or in a week we're doing this, it's still okay with them because they don't have it all planned out, right? So they have things that they like to fill in, and these goodwill shots or shorts or whatever you want to call it are perfect pieces to add to all the heaviness
Yeah.
that we have out there in the news now. So do know it's not like, oh, I should have contacted them 6 months ago. The other thing is that I think from a simulationist perspective, we have our head down and are working so hard all the time. And we don't think to look up and tell other people what we're doing. But the marketing team, that's their job. So, you talked about contacting these different places. To somebody who is a simulationist, that's overwhelming. What are they going to ask me? I don't know what to say. How long are they going to need? What are they going to need to do? If you have somebody that has that marketing background or that marketing bend, they're going to be a lot more comfortable with those pieces of information. So just partner
when
with
they've
them.
done it 100 times. They've done it
Yes.
so many times. So again,
Yes.
for them, this is just routine. This is like someone coming in and being like, could you show me how to run a simulation? And you're like, yes, of course I can. Here you go. This is what you do. It's the same thing for the marketing team. You ask them, hey, can you get media involved to be able to discuss this further? Like, again, yes, absolutely. We can do that. No problem. That's what we did last year here at Avkin. We partnered with Duquesne and Oakland University, and we went out there and partnered with their marketing teams. And again, from one marketing person to another marketing person, it was so easy because they were the people who I was talking to directly. We worked it out with the Sim Lab to see if they were interested to highlight the different Avkin products, but then being able to have their marketing team come in. And I remember specifically with Duquesne, when we were there, their marketing team was like, we don't come here enough. Like, we don't come to the Sim Lab enough. We don't talk about the Sim Lab enough. But once they were able to come in and see everything, they were like, this is so cool. We could get this content. We could do this social media. We can do that. And again, it just helps bridge those gaps of getting them involved, getting them to see it. And then again, allow them to have the light bulbs go off, because if they are good at what they do in marketing, they will have plenty of light bulbs go off with what they can do with that simulation lab. And then again, afterwards, the simulation lab was able to get all of the video and all of the photo that was shot by the marketing team, and they're using them for enrollment and things like that. So they're updating their website now. They have a lot more coming out with their social media, things like that. But even just to be able to gain some of that organic, original content, again, it's so helpful.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's huge for the institutions.
Yeah.
I never ever thought about getting media involved or anything along those lines. And then when my theater partner, because they have to publicize and get out what they're doing, when he first contacted the newspapers and had that come and do a story on what we were doing with our initiation or our course for our standardized patient program, it was as if the scales got lifted from my eyes about, oh my gosh, there's resources out here to help us. There's people that will, really get the word out. And then we ended up being able to partner with a local tertiary care hospital to help our program grow. So you never know what's going to come of it. But at the end of the day, advocating for healthcare simulation, a lot of people still are having trouble with buy-in, getting them down there to actually see what you're doing, to hear what the impact that the students are having, and to hear how that's being translated out into clinical practice. I think that's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is your tip that you have for maximizing Healthcare Sim Week?
Well, I would say make sure that you're documenting it. So put it on the map. Healthcare Simulation Week is really important. Again, we've talked about this, but I just want to be clear. The Society for Simulation in Healthcare supports Healthcare Simulation Week. They don't own it. So they allow anybody to put their activities for what's happening. So once you get with a marketing team and you decide, hey, this is what the one thing, again, if you've not done anything, just pick one thing that we're going to do.
It can be a webinar. It can be an in-person event. It can be a lunch and learn. It can be any of these things.
It could be a tour. It could be inviting a high school class in. Again, a lot of people are trying to get high school or middle school students interested in health professions. Anything like that, whatever it is, go on to the Society for Simulation in Healthcare website and map it. Just, again, let your voice be heard, because the more that we put this information out there, the more it's going to raise awareness, and the more it's going to advocate for what we're doing. So it's kind of like a snowball. It starts small, and it did start small when we first had Healthcare Simulation Week, but let's let that momentum continue to make it grow, and let's document what we're doing so that other people around the world know what we're doing. And you can also go to that map and find out what other people are doing. It'll give you some great ideas. If the marketing team doesn't know what to do or what to think of, go look right now. There's things on that map that are or that people do some people will do like a TikTok video about, funny things that happen in simulation and just put it out, or, whatever it is.
I saw a really funny music video that they did last year. I cannot remember which institution it was. I wish I knew. But there is a really funny music video that they put out last year.
We're going to have to find that because I remember that. And that was one of the best put together pieces of content that I saw all week.
We'll put that in the show notes. But that's that was a really good one. And just them being creative.
Yeah. And the Society for Simulation in Healthcare has a video contest every year. So I'm sure they're doing that again this year. But but it is, whatever it is. But if you need creative ideas, go to the map. But once you decide what you're going to do, put it on the map. Yeah. It just helps your voice be heard.
I think it also helps with buy-in from the deans as well, to be able to say, hey, this is why I want to be able to do this, because look at all these other institutions who are participating. Look at how big this is, right? And like what you said with the snowball effect, it really does help to get buy-in when you're saying, look, all these other people are doing it. Right? We need to be involved. We need to do it the same way. And again, being able to have that, I think is really helpful.
Yeah.
So we actually put our event that will be happening during Healthcare Sim Week. So this was something that we are really intentional about. We wanted to plan a Sim Summit around Healthcare Sim Week. So we wanted to have it on that Friday. So we are partnering with Crystal at George Washington University. And we are going to host a Sim Summit. So those of you who don't know what a Sim Summit is, basically when we started at Avkin, Amy and I were really passionate about wanting to be able to get education out there, right? It wasn't just about what we were doing with the technology. We really wanted to be able to push the standardized patient and just simulation modality. We wanted to get the word out there. So we are going around and doing workshops. They were free. We are kind of just doing, I don't even know. I think in 2019, I think we had put on 30, 25.
No, I think it was more. I think it was like 50.
More? Oh my gosh, that year's a blur for me. But so we went out, and again, it was just how do we spread the word? How do we get things out there? And then when COVID happened, and basically we just got shut down all the way around, we were like, well, what do we do now? Like we gotta regroup. So during that time, I'm not going to lie, it was nice not to be traveling every other week and going to every place known to God and man across the United States of America. So finally, we had the ability to kind of like think through what we wanted it to be. So we really kind of took that concept of the workshop and that concept of in-person events, and we just elevated it. So then that's where we came up with Sim Summits. And so we've started doing Sim Summits now. We hosted one at Sam Houston. We're going to George Washington, and then we'll be going to Connecticut in October. But basically the concept is elevating the workshop. So what we're doing is we're putting on one day of a conference or a summit and talking about simulation modality education. So this isn't strictly standardized patients. We do naturally lean that way. Again, I'm not going to, we definitely naturally lean that way. But we're talking about debriefing best practices. We're talking about psychological safety and simulation. We're talking about interprofessional education. But the gamut is fully wide of what we're discussing. And the other thing that we really felt strongly about was also allowing people to be able to ask questions. So we have panel discussions that happen during each of these where people are able to ask questions of the panel about what are their questions in simulation, what it is that they're going through. But that opportunity to network and ask questions and just the connection that happens, I think is just so cool to see. And then with our partner institutions, we also allow them to come up with ideas for presentations, or if they want to present or anyone on their team wants to present, that's another way that we're opening things up so that it's not just you and I, but that we're really opening it up to simulation experts to be able to present and talk about, what are the pressing things going on in simulation that need to be discussed? What needs more education?
Yeah. And I think the big thing with the Sim Summits that hit home to me was the idea of trying to do a hands-on workshop on debriefing. I really was, the first time we did it at Sam Houston, I was like, I don't know how this is going to go.
She was a mess.
Not a mess, but just
nervous.
Nervous about how it was going to land, because how do you do...
You want to know how I can always tell when she's nervous? When she starts trying to whip everyone into shape. When it's like, all right, everybody needs to focus right now. Everyone needs to pay attention to what I'm talking about.
Go into mom mode.
Exactly.
All right.
Everyone, knock it off. We're focused right now. That's how I can always tell when you're nervous, when it's like, because when you're not nervous, you're like, we'll wing it. We don't even need a presentation. Why would we even do slides?
I would
We're
never
fine.
do that. I'm an educator.
But
I would
still,
never
you're like, I'll go up there. I could like point me in the right direction. You're fine. And then when it's like something you're like not super confident, or like, again, you're just a little like, you don't know how it's going to go. That's when you're just like, what's the plan? No one told me the plan. Why don't we have a plan? We need a plan.
So this is not a benefit of having family in your business. Just so you know. You get humbled on a regular basis. All of your...
But the presentation went really good. Go ahead. Talk about the presentation.
Well,
It went
I just
really
want to say one more thing. Pam Jeffries, her son said something one time, and it was brought up. We were at a dinner, and I was sitting next to her, and she said, it's always humbling when you have your family involved in your business life. And I 100% agree with Pam Jeffries. She said it so eloquently and gently. Me, rather, I'd be flapping like a chicken. But anyway, so the debriefing hands-on workshop, the way that we did it was we showed a video of a simulation that was happening. And then we had the nursing student portrayed in the debriefing process, and then we also had the SP that was the patient there for the debriefing process. So the video was watching the simulation happening, and then we did a live, sample of a debriefing. Mm-hmm. And I think from my perspective, the reaction or the response that we got to that of how people are just. They wanted more of it. We did an hour-long one, and they said, please, you could do an entire day.
It was an hour and a half. Yeah, we did an hour and a half, and they still were like, we scratched the surface. We could have done more. Because what we really focused on, so it was that I was the standardized patient, we had a nursing student, and then you were the debriefer. You were the faculty member. So when we had done it, we were all sitting there, like basically it was just that I was kind of like chiming in or talking too much in the debriefing or saying something that maybe the standardized patient, it wasn't appropriate for them to be commenting on. And then you would kind of demonstrate how you take the reins back or how you keep it focused on the objectives and things along those lines. And again, it was like seeing everyone's reaction and face in the audience, it was like giving a glass of water to someone who'd been in the desert. Like, it was just like, oh my gosh, like, we finally understand this. Makes so much sense. Like, let's do more. Let's show me more things of how to demonstrate it and do it. And again, I think that that's something that we don't ever, well, again, I think that, again, I can speak for myself, but I think whenever we do it and the knowledge we have, I always go back and I'm like, but everybody knows this. We're working off the same knowledge. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we don't know more than anyone else knows. We, again, we're the same as anyone else is. But then when you go and you do the presentations, again, the reaction is always very, I don't know what the right word is, appreciative of just like, oh my gosh, like I can finally I see it. And I think that also goes back to not just always saying it or reading it, but then seeing it in real life and seeing real life applications. I think that that's the other huge component of that.
For me, I agree with everything you're saying, but the other thing that really hit me with that one was, so I use a 3-phase of debriefing, right? So it's kind of that diffusing, derolling phase 1. And in the diffusing, derolling, you ask, the learners, as the SP's preparing their feedback, hey, what do you think went well? What do you think you could improve on? And then the other question I always ask is, was there anything from a previous simulation that you applied to this simulation or that you've applied to your clinical practice, and how did that go? And it is a moment of reflection, but it just allows them, it's just something for them to think through. But that one question resonated with that team, with the people that were attending that Sim Summit so strongly. You almost audibly could hear them going, "Oh, I really like that," And it was just something that I had always added into my mantra as part of my diffusing derolling, probably because I was trying to extend that time out a little bit more, because I wanted to give the SP time to create their feedback. But it did give that moment of reflection, even in the early on, for the students, for the learners, to really think about, oh, well, what did I apply? And again, commonly, where I used to do simulation all the time, we would do several short simulations in a semester. So there's a 10-minute simulation with a 20-minute debrief. So literally 30-minute simulations. We do 4 of them. Rather than 2 hour-long simulations, we do 4 30-minute simulations. That allowed less students to be in the room at a time. But that quick question, because they had just done something similar. So think about diversity, equity, and inclusion. we would do 4 over the course of the semester, but they got to think about what principles they applied from the first one into the second one, into the third one. They were all slightly different, but it was same kind of concept. And so that really, again, allowed them to see their own growth, but then it also allowed me to see the growth in them as they were going through that semester or that particular course.
Mm-hmm. All right. So to get back to our topic, so our other tip. So my third tip would be bring outside people in. So bring in the community, bring in donors, bring in leadership, bring in the deans, bring in the presidents, bring in everybody. But showcase what it is that you're doing. I think that in simulation, we know so well what we do. We know a lot of our resources. We know how cool it is, and we get excited. But I think that it's very easy to think you just get in the routine of it. It's like you just get in the routine of, yep, this is what you do. These are the really cool sims that you put on. This is the technology that you have. And you kind of just keep going with it. And then I think that it's hard to remember that what you're doing is so, we're trailblazing. Every single one of us, we are trailblazing as we go forward. And it's a cool, it's inventive, it's quippy, it's flashy, it's all of these things. And if we're not bringing in people to show it, who else is gonna advocate for you? Who else is gonna push that message, right? But again, being able to just simply put on an open house, whether it be an hour, 2 hours, everyone's invited. It goes out to the entire, institution. Anyone can come in, view it. And again, simply just put on a basic sim, right? Just allow them to watch from the control room. Put up have them be able to watch remotely. Just have them walk through the simulation rooms. Don't even put on a full sim. Just let them walk through the rooms and have the mannequins on and see the chest rise and fall, or, whatever it is. Have standardized patients that are in the bed that can actually communicate. They can talk. They can interact with the people. But those are some ideas that I think we think that it has to be so grand. And there are some that are. I remember at an Axel, I think this was a few years ago now, but I remember talking to someone, and they said that what they had done was they did an open house, but they did it carnival themed. So basically, she was the ringleader, and then they had kind of like Night at the Big Top almost. So they had different decoration, they had popcorn and stuff like that. But it was a way to bring a lot of people in and be able to see it. And her big thing was donors. That was her main motivation for doing it, was bringing in the donors for it. But she's it left a lasting impression. People still talk about it to this day of how cool it was to be able to see all of these different things in all of these different spaces. But I think that is something that the more we can do it where, it doesn't have to be grand. It can be, and it can be really cool, or it can be really basic. But again, just being able to bring people in, I think that we just don't do that enough. And again, I think that's a great idea for Healthcare Sim Week. And then when you have people coming in, know what you need. If you know what you need from a budgetary perspective, we're looking to grow our standardized patient program. We're looking to start a standardized patient program. We need new pumps. We need new, whatever it is, know what it is that you need, so that then when you do get the question, and you can answer it. Because again, if you let that opportunity pass and you don't know what it is that you need, they're on the next national week, right? They're on the next thing. But if you know what it is that you need, even have a thermometer on the wall that talks about this is how much we're looking to grow the program, or this is how much we're looking. Again, it creates something that's tangible. They can see it. They know what the needs are. And then you just need to be able to speak to what those needs are.
Yeah. And I would say hospital leadership, local hospitals, if they're hiring your graduates, inviting them to come in, because there's a lot of hospitals that are now donating into healthcare simulation, especially if they can see that it potentially is increasing enrollment because there's such a shortage of healthcare providers. So thinking about hospital leadership, and then I would look also at the other end of inviting in high school students and middle school students, because we're trying to figure out how to increase enrollment. Get them in there. That's the best time.
Yeah.
You talked about elaborate themes. The whole idea of a circus completely overwhelms me, right? And I think probably most simulationists. But think about it from an escape room. You could do a fun little escape room where you put 2 sim centers together and they're trying to get out of the hospital to be discharged or something, fun like that. So, there's ways to do it that you can really set up some fun things. It takes a little bit of work. It takes a little bit of time. So
it's really funny that you say the circus overwhelms you, because I'm that identifies with a sim center so much and will be so easy. I could just apply everything of daily life from a sim center into it.
Having palpitations.
But that's like my weekend project. I'd be like, yeah, let me turn it into a circus. That sounds awesome.
Circus, no. But anyway, so different strokes for different folks. Again, think about what you can do. But again, inviting outside people in. Kim DeYoung, she was from Kankakee Community College. I don't think she's working there anymore, but she pretty much funded her entire sim center with donor support. And so there is a way to do it.
Brigham Young University as well. Theirs was completely donor funded.
So, there are philanthropic people out there in this world. Figure out who's in your neighborhood. Yeah. And that's not necessarily your job. There is typically a philanthropic arm of your institution that they have a list of potential donors. I think the cool thing about healthcare is that, there's a lot of times where like the donor may be an engineer. So they really only want to donate to the engineering department, or the donor is a pilot, right? So they're going to donate to the aeronautics. But guess what? They are all consumers of healthcare. And so whether they are philanthropic in their particular major, when you bring about the idea of healthcare, or especially COVID, it's just been like gasoline on the fire. Those people are going to consider philanthropic endeavors outside of their own major, because regardless, we or a loved one are all going to need healthcare education.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my favorite stories from the tour that I always think about was when we had a standardized patient in the bed, and they had a tour that was going through, and a group of them were standing there, and someone said, "Wow, that mannequin looks like a real person." And she turns her head and goes, "I am a real person." And everyone like jumped out of their skin. But I think that that's also so important too, that it's not just showing the technology, but it's also showing the people, because I think people always assume, oh, it's mannequins, it's not real. But being able to have it where a real person is going through, and again, all of that stuff, again, I think it leaves a lasting impression.
I think they had the av tray on, and that's what made the person think that
it was a mannequin.
They weren't real. Yeah.
All right. Do you want to share your last tip for maximizing Healthcare Simulation Week?
I would say definitely, you had mentioned it earlier, but the idea that you have got to go to leadership to advocate for what your needs are. So that's inviting them down for events. But I think it's also the fact that it makes the leadership look good. It attracts the right students. It increases enrollment. And so if you can hit the things that your leadership cares about with this particular Healthcare Simulation Week to advocate for, again, maybe some workload time to just plan it, or maybe getting, the marketing team involved, or the philanthropic arm of your institution, whatever it is, making sure that you go to your leadership, that you're very clear about what you need. I think very, very strongly, women, especially nurses, are cultured to use suggestive language, where it would be really nice if, or I would like to, or I think it's a good idea, or I would just want to. And all of those are suggestions. But to say, we need to advocate for our simulation program in this way, and this is what it's going to do, speaks to the leadership. And so rather than using suggestive language, because you have to think, everybody that's going to them is going to them with a need. And so if you're using suggestive language, so as an example, when we started our standardized patient program, for 3 years I said, it would be really nice to have some administrative support. I'd really like to have some administrative support. Administrative support would be really nice, right? And then finally I said, we are not going to continue to grow as a program unless we get administrative support. And all of a sudden, we got administrative support. So I think the way that you say it and the way that you approach it is really, really important. One of the suggestions I have is to write it out, read it, and then change it to be much more direct language. And again, you're not going to go in with the script, but just write it how you think about it, and then read it and say, is this suggestive or is this clear? Is
Or
this
read it to
clear?
somebody else and ask them, is this suggestive, or,
Yeah,
again,
but
I think that that's also helpful.
I don't read it to another nurse.
They'll always say it's great.
We're just bred to be suggestive.
Yeah.
Right? I think of my big fat Greek wedding, where the man is the head, the woman is the neck. And we're just always meant to say, hey, have you noticed that the patient in room 476 is breathing at 40 times a minute? That's pretty, it's a lot, right? So it's one of those things where just know that that's kind of the natural bend of how we have been cultured as a society, especially in America. I can't speak to everywhere else, but I think women in general. And then also to be considering how you are talking about outcomes. What do you expect to gain from this event? Why is this important? How can we make it better, right? So think about the things that motivate your leadership, your specific leadership. Think about what the mission and vision of your particular institution is.
What are the things that they keep talking about in meetings? Again, that's going to tell you what they are focused on. If they keep bringing up in meetings, increasing enrollment, diversity, equity, inclusion, whatever it is that they keep pushing in those meetings, that is what is top of mind for them. So if you can find a way to have it where this is how this is going to increase what you care about, again, you're going to get more of a reaction. You're going to get more assistance for what it is that you need.
And the other thing that I didn't realize about leadership until, and I'm talking about like academic administration, as well as probably hospital administration too, I would guess, is they have to report out on what new initiatives that they have done this year. What new things are they bringing forward? This is an easy win for them. This is a new initiative. So, think about this as a new, pose it, if it's something that you haven't done every year, as a new initiative or as a more strategic initiative or whatever the case may be. But when you can pose it in the terms that they need to hear as far as buzzwords, and you're actually talking about outcomes, I anticipate that we're going to get 20 high school students if we can invite, 4 different classes of this or that or whatever it is, but you're giving them what you anticipate, what your goals are for that. That makes a difference rather than, hey, I'd love to do an open house for Healthcare Simulation Week. But hey, I think if we host this open house and we work with marketing and our philanthropic arm, we're going to be able to get 50 people through this and maybe get, donations of $25,000 to $50,000. This is how I anticipate approaching it. Just spending a few minutes thinking it through. Again, look at that map. There's all kinds of ideas there. But I think that really helps move things forward. And I will tell you that if you do participate by putting your stuff on the map, the Society for Simulation Healthcare will send you a certificate that you can put in your sim center. So it's something like a badge of honor about your participation efforts for that particular week and for advocating for healthcare simulation.
Yep. So all of these tips can be found at avkin.com/blog. We will have resources out there that will be able to help you guys. And again, this will all be written down with some different tools and things like that. We'll have a justification toolkit, which again, you can download and be able to fill out. And that's something you can take to show your dean. It offers all tips on how to be able to talk to leadership about what your needs are. But again, that is avkin.com/blog. This resource will be on there and really be able to help guide you.
All right, and I got one more question for you guys to finish off the show.
All right.
Okay, so in honor of Healthcare Simulation Week 2023, I want to know, what would your tips be to champion your own simulation success story?
Well, my tip would be to read the book Playing Big by Tara Mohr, Taramohr. I think I read over 250 books when I was getting ready to start Avkin as a company and just trying to gain that confidence that I could be a CEO and that I could really develop into the leader that would be able to support company growth, but also just any type of leadership piece. And Tara Mohr's book was revolutionary for me, so I would highly recommend championing your own destiny with that. And my second tip would be to consider certification.
All right. So what came to mind for me is finding the right people around you. So again, you don't have to be an expert in everything.
No.
Find out what it is that you're good at. Find out the things that are unique about you. The sooner you can find those things that make you stand out and what your strong suits are, you're going to be so much further than so many other people to just know, oh, this is what I'm good at. This is what my unique bend is. And then for the things that you don't naturally lean towards, find people around you who are good at that. Again, I think that goes back to kind of what we've been talking about throughout this whole podcast. But again, that marketing team, they're going to have the creative eye. They're going to have the creative bend. They're the ones that can talk business. They're the ones who can talk, key performance indicators, all of that stuff, and bring them in. If that's not your strong suit, if your strong suit is simulation and your passion and being able to talk about what it is that you do day to day and the bigger mission and vision, allow the other people to step in and do the other pieces. But I think that I've just learned that over the years, that the more you can get other people around you who compliment you and, again, assist you going forward.
Yeah.
You're
a
just
perfect example of that is like planning any event is so overwhelming for me. Mm-hmm. Planning an event, anything where like the workshops or the Sim Summits, I'm fine with going and presenting and, again, I love people, so interacting with them. But the idea of the planning behind it is overwhelming. But that's Megan's strong suit, and she loves to do it.
I was going to say the same thing.
That it's your strong suit?
No, that we're yin and yang.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Same thing.
But I think that
just naturally happened, guys. She created me, and so then she just naturally created a compliment to herself. That's what happened.
Not intentionally. I had no idea. It's amazing when your kids outdo you, for sure. But I think the big thing to that is to know that even though it overwhelms you, there's somebody probably on your team or within your network that loves to do it.
Yes. And
they would do it at night for free. That's just something that they get enjoyment out of. She loves to plan travel. Oh my goodness. Planning anything is really hard for me. So, having her plan ahead for vacations, that kind of thing. There's somebody within your network that likes this type of thing, and don't be ashamed to ask for help because they actually get enjoyment out of it.
All right, guys, thank you for joining us on this episode of Healthcare Simulation Nation podcast. We will be continuing to talk about maximizing Healthcare Simulation Week, so stay tuned for the next episode on being a champion of your own success.